One thing you see in history, though, is that there's always people that are kind of pushing the boundaries that we're pushing on right now.
Hmm.
They sometimes it doesn't go well for them. Like if you're the Cathars or something, you get killed by the church. You're like, it was rougher in the past than it is now. But I mean,
Hmm.
these things, part of I think why calling them the occult is so good is like they're hidden, but they're there. And I feel like no matter how religious it could get or has been, there's always some people that seek and find it.
Yes.
And there always will be. So
This computer. All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video, and I am here with a super special guest. You're super special. So this
thanks.
is this is Joe March, aka PsychoSorcerer 2.0 on YouTube. I believe
That's
you
right.
had you had an original channel, PsychoSorcerer. I
Mm-hmm.
actually didn't. I wasn't aware of your channel at the time. I don't think, or if I was, I may have. It's likely I'd seen it. And just wasn't super aware of it. And now you've kind of not rebranded's maybe the wrong word. I'd say
Debranded.
evolved, debranded. There
I
you go.
debranded because I came back as just myself as Joseph March and then decided to switch it back to Psycho Sorcerer, but added the 2.0 just to be funny. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, okay.
debranded.
Cool. I like that though. It happens sometimes. So maybe we'll touch on that. But we are here for another a religion to occult interview series, and I'm finding that the more people I interview for these, the more I'm having to sort of evolve or shift the what it's about, because not everybody
Mm-hmm.
grew up religious, but that doesn't mean necessarily that there's no religion or religious experience involved.
Yeah.
So it still encompasses everything, and it's mostly like the interviews are mostly about like the shift, like the spiritual journey that takes place, and any programming that
Mm-hmm.
happens along the way that we have to unlearn. Um, so we're gonna kind of get started from the beginning. So I know just from speaking with you a little bit before that you did not grow up religious, but let's start. Let's start as far back as we can. So what was your first like spiritual practice, even whether that was religion or spirituality? What was just that first introduction to a faith of sorts?
But I think it can be confusing. I think I make it more confusing than it has to be when it comes to like, it was I raised religious. I think from some people's point of view, I was, and from some people's point of view, I wasn't. And it depends who I'm talking to.
Okay.
Because some people, if you say, were you raised religious? They mean, did you go to church every Sunday? Did you, only watch the Christian TV shows that were allowed for Christians to watch and things like that? Like, I didn't have that experience. So I didn't have that hyper religious upbringing.
Okay.
But I was raised Christian, so we can talk about that a bit.
Okay.
But when I was thinking about this in preparation, I realized if I go back to my parents, we'll see where the influence comes from,
Mm,
because they were both raised Christian in that way, where you go to church every Sunday. Christianity is a big part of who you are. And my mother's father was a preacher,
mm.
and her mother did the organ and the piano at church.
Oh, cool.
There's
Yeah.
definitely this like Christian ness that was in my upbringing, although for me it was a little different.
Okay.
And
Sure.
part of why I wasn't raised the same way is because my mother's father, my grandfather, he was the preacher, like I said, but he was also a seeker.
Mm,
And the more that he, preached and did whatever he did, the more he started to see holes and problems. And he actually
mm.
had that transition out of
Interesting.
Christianity. And he
Wow.
became an atheist. And he was one of those very like forward atheists who like
Mm,
writes papers and writes notes and sends notes to people about how this is wrong and this doesn't match that and all this sort of stuff.
mm,
And then my grandmother stayed very strongly in the faith. So my mother was kind of pulled between these two things.
mm.
And I
Both
think that,
extremes.
yeah, I think that led her to kind of look at it more like an analogy as opposed to like a fact, because
Mm,
that was the only way to balance those two sides. Like, she didn't want to go with one side or the other. She needed them both to be true somehow, since she was a kid during all this. And
mm.
so it became, oh, well, if we look at it as a story, then maybe, yes, it's not all the way true, but also it is. And she kind of made her own views of it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that as a kid. So when I was brought up with a lot of the rules and dogma of the church, but
Hmm.
they were taught to me by my mother and father. They weren't, I didn't go to church and have that
Okay.
sort of stuff. So a
Yeah.
lot of the same rules stayed. And I think that's something people don't think about a lot, is that a lot of us who maybe aren't raised religious may still have some of that caked in. Like it's part of the culture here in this nation.
Yeah,
And it's
it
very
is.
hard to get away from it. And so
Hmm.
there was still a bit of that I had to get away from in my life. And I was just lucky on my dad's side that even though he was Christian more traditionally, he was also the type of person who likes to stick it to the man and that type of stuff. And so whenever my mother was like, I don't know if I want to go to church every Sunday, he's like, I don't. So we didn't have to. So
He saw an opening. He's like, all
yeah.
right, we're not going. Yeah.
So I was raised with some of those Bible stories and things, but they were more like retellings, like the way that my parents would kind of pick out the morals and kind of give you some teaching and this and that.
Hmm.
And so I did have a bit of that Christian influence growing up.
Okay. Yeah.
That did cause some problems for me in high school. Up until then, it was just like, okay, cool, that's good. But in high school, you start trying to find yourself. That's where I started running into problems where I did what a lot of people do, where you start to project on other people the parts of yourself that you repress. And so I was actually very homophobic in high school
Mm.
because, and this is in the 90s. So in the 90s, it wasn't so easy to just be yourself.
Hmm.
So we were doing this thing in the 90s where everybody was openly discussing, like, is being gay a choice or is being gay something you're born with?
Hmm.
And I was very certain at the time that it must be a choice, because otherwise that meant I was different,
Hmm.
because
Mm.
I'm attracted to both, but I
Mm.
was not willing to admit that. To me, I was straight as long as I fought that other side.
Sure. Yeah.
And that feeling of needing to be that way, that kind of kept me from seeing myself as who I was at the time.
Hmm.
That comes from that Christian background, even though I wasn't raised Christian.
Totally. Yeah.
And there were other examples like that, but that's a great example of like one major thing that became a hurdle for me that eventually I'd have to get over. And
Yeah.
the other thing I would say would be the fear of like hell or punishment if you didn't follow the rules. I still had that even though I didn't go to the church. And
Mm.
so eventually
Interesting.
when I got into, magic and things like that, I had to get over that fear that, if I summon a demon, am I going to go to hell, or am I going to get my whole life thrown into disarray or things like that?
Right.
But it have some of those things, like someone who has been raised in the faith, but not to the extent of someone who was continuously indoctrinated in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you made a good point with just the familial like lineage of religion. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a DNA code that's instilled in us.
Yeah.
With this, if we even if we're not actively participating in said religion, if our family has for generations, then we're born into that more or
Yeah.
less, and so it just is inside of us, even if like your experience, you weren't super active going and doing church every Sunday and all that. Um, but I can relate a lot to a couple of things that you said. So my mom is actually very well. She still is a church organist. So and she
Yeah.
plays piano, yeah, and was like really in the choir and leading the choirs and everything. So that was fun. I enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
that part of church. And then also just with the sexuality thing, like church was a big in high school. It became a big hurdle. It became a
Yep.
big burden for me because I was discovering my own sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
and again was very much like, nope, if I don't pay
Yeah.
attention, if I don't look at it, if I don't entertain it, then it's not true. And eventually as things bubbled up as they do, and you're like, okay, fuck, like I
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and with my experience, like I was very active going to church every Sunday, and with my family and everything, and so the church became, that was when the separation for me began with the church, was like in high school. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't so much that I was a strong believer beforehand, but it was the first time that I felt like I wasn't supported, I wasn't
Yeah.
safe, I wasn't welcome. And yeah, so that was a whole transition. And I think that's, that can be said for a lot of people's stories. Not that we're going to make this whole conversation about sexuality, but it is like, I have a lot of friends who have a similar experience with that too. And it's so I, yeah, can relate to just kind of that finding yourself journey and everything. So when you
Hmm.
were a kid, like regardless of being spiritual, or regardless of being religious, or as religious as people might, assume or something, did you find yourself like a spiritual child? Like, were you magical? Were you aware? Were you, in tune with energy at all? Do you remember
I
anything
was
like that?
very imaginative, I would say.
Mm,
I don't see it as like I wasn't someone who was born, having like a gift or something like that, so much as just I'm very creative, but it's also visual, like vivid. Like I have dreams. I dream every night. Some
cool.
people
Yeah.
don't remember their dreams, but like I dream multiple dreams a night, and I've been that way as long as I can remember.
Do you remember them every
I
time
do.
too?
Well, I don't. If I don't write them down right away or think about them when I wake up, they can disappear,
Yeah.
just like anyone else.
Mm,
But some of them are so vivid, it's crazy. But
mm, mm.
I've always been someone who's very imaginative like that. And as a kid, that definitely affected the way I saw things. And then my mother, like I was saying, she kind of was always trying to figure out like where all the religious stuff fit in. So she ended up starting to mix in a bit of that new agey Christianity stuff into her religion, which my dad didn't do, but
Okay.
he's like fine with it.
Yeah.
But things like Eckhart Tolle or Gary Zukov, where they're talking about like souls and coming back and this being a place to learn and reincarnation and things, that all kind of got added into her Christian views. And I didn't realize till later when I got old enough to go in and like read the Bible and other stuff for myself that like, well, none of this is in there. This is all her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of got raised with some of what I think would be New Ager-ish stuff, like a little hippie-ish, without not full blown that way either, but I had at least a taste of that as well
Okay.
growing up.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said for being a super imaginative kid,
Hmm.
because that evolves later on when you get into, whether or not you get into magic.
Hmm.
Creativity in general, like, is hugely important in like the visualizations and just the being able to imagine what things may look like, or even seeing them, being more open to seeing them. So I think the imagination is a sort of mystical in and of itself, and especially to have dreams, like vivid dreams, like you do, like you said, every
Hmm.
night and stuff, like that definitely counts.
Yep.
I too was a very imaginative kid, and still am. I mean, as an
Hmm.
adult, and
Yep.
it does. I do find that that it is helpful in any magical practices I've done, because I am. I mean, I can imagine anything.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh, I can't." Can you imagine this? And I'm like, well, yeah, like I can. Like, is it realistic? Maybe not, but I can imagine it,
Hmm.
and superimpose images onto reality. And I think
Yeah.
that's when I found out that some people can't picture, like if you say elephant, they don't picture an elephant in their mind. I don't know what goes on there. It's called
Yeah.
something. I can't remember the word. But when I found that out, I was like, "What? Like, how does somebody like what? That I didn't. It did not
Yeah.
compute at first." So,
I
uh,
didn't find that out till I was doing my old channel, the one before this,
mm,
PsychoSorcerer, not PsychoSorcerer 2.0.
yeah,
But I was trying to do the thing at that point in my life where I was like, I've read all this occult stuff and I want to bring it to people and then just like give them information. And
hmm
people would come back to me with questions like, well, what if you can't visualize? And I was like, what do you mean? What if you can't visualize?
right.
And so I started learning about all these people who can't do this or can't do that. Like some people can't do breathing exercises because they have something wrong where they can't, or
Mm,
deviated septums, or all kinds of different things. Some people can't get into a meditative posture because of their back.
yeah.
Every one of those questions I would have never even thought about if I hadn't had a channel and had people ask me, oh, what about this? And I was like, oh, I never even considered that before.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, you don't know till you know. So
Hmm.
Yeah, but it was astounding to me when I first heard that. So I was
Hmm.
like, you can't visualize things, but yeah, but people are different, so you learn as you go. So as you got older, what was your introduction into the occult? Like what how did that sort of what led you there, really?
So outside of high school, I went into the military because my
Okay.
dad and his dad were both military men, and it just seemed like the thing to do at the time. And I was still, a teenager just trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I didn't end up staying there. I am not someone who it would say normally I was in the military,
Okay.
because I went into basic training and didn't make it the whole way through. So I never
Mm.
really was in there.
Yeah.
But I ended up out of the getting out of basic training for two different reasons. One of them was I have flat feet, and halfway through the training, I saw a doctor, and he said, "You can push past the pain you're having right now to try to finish, but
Mhm.
if you do, you might be on a cane when you're 30." And I was like, "That doesn't
Oh,
sound good."
wow, yeah.
But the other was because I had started to no longer want to be there before that point, based on
Mm.
something else that happened to me while I was in there. And it's going to
Mm.
sound kind of funny to say I kind of found this care for other people while I was in the military, but that's what happened.
Hmm.
I was having these issues with my feet and with other stuff, and we have other people in the squad that have their own problems. We're all trying to do different things, and I'm starting to get this feeling of camaraderie from everybody,
Mhm.
because it wasn't like, oh, you're on your own doing your own thing. If someone was falling, other people were picking you up and getting you across the finish line and stuff like that in that
Mm.
training. We really became like a tight knit unit.
Yeah.
And then one day I went out on the range where we're practicing shooting, and they have these clay uh, people basically that pop up that you're supposed to shoot as they pop out of the trench, basically.
Mhm.
And I'd done it before, but this time, for some reason, my brain just went, the enemy soldiers have the same camaraderie that I do. Like it just hit me
Mm.
that like everybody is from their own point of view has
Ooh.
these same people. And then I
Yeah.
started seeing like faces on the trench things as they popped up, and I just hesitated.
Hmm.
And it's ever since then I just didn't see it the same. It's like I had a moment where I saw people as
Hmm.
more than just whatever teenage me thought they were. And
Yeah.
I attribute this in what we're talking about because I think Christianity, even though I didn't grow up heavily in it, I did grow up with those rules and the very like black and white us versus them mindset at
Mhm.
the time. And this is the first time that us versus them disappeared, and it was just us. And I was like, wait,
Mm.
I don't think I want to kill anyone. And that just, I
Mm.
didn't know that would be a thing that would happen to me because I was very like hoorah back then, which I'm very much not now.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually that would lead me to be like an anti-war person and all this sort of stuff, which is very much not someone who should be in the military.
Yeah. Right.
And I was going through that, like, what does this mean for me? Is this just a thing? Is this how I am now? What is this going to be? And then I get told about my feet, and I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. This is,
Mm. It was a good exit.
opportunity has given me a chance to leave this situation.
Yeah. Wow.
But in and around trying to figure that out, I started going to church, which
Okay.
was the first time for me going to church.
Yeah.
And I did have some kind of spiritual experience there.
Mhm.
And at first, it was just this strong, like the community, because I didn't grow up going to church, so I didn't have that community
Mhm.
tied to religion before.
Yeah.
But also, there was this other feeling like there's something greater than you out there. And I was really starting to feel this, like, I don't know, the wholeness that I was starting to get from that realization about other people and like how everyone is their own individuals and everything. Like, I was all just hitting me at once. And I think I attributed some of it to the church at that time. But
Yeah.
there was this feeling of something greater.
Mm.
And so I started going to church. And then after getting out of the military, I kept going to church for a while. But then I started reading the Bible.
Mhm.
And that's what got me out of the church because the Bible was not actually the way my parents had kind of raised me on stuff.
Yeah.
When I started reading, I was like, this does not work for me. Like these rules, the way that this stuff works. And then I had also as a teenager, I had typed up some of my grandfather's paperwork because he wanted a hard copy he could keep, a saved
Mhm.
version so he could send it to multiple people. And I had typing skills. So it all kind of came back as I was reading these different things where he said, this is this way here and not there, and this and that. And I don't know, it just broke apart for me at one point where I was like, this is not right.
Mm.
But I still felt like there was something. I was like, there's something that I touched, that I got like
Yeah, I got a glimpse of.
I got a glimpse of it, but it's not really here in this religion specifically. So
Hmm.
what happened to me then is I got hungry for that feeling.
Hmm.
And so I started looking at all the different religions. And so that's what would eventually lead me to magic. And it was a long walk to get to the answer to the question,
That's
but
okay. Yeah.
it was, then I'm looking into Buddhism, then I'm looking into theosophy and,
Hmm.
Blavatsky and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm looking into the hippie stuff and the New Ager stuff. And I was going down different whole, I like some Hindu beliefs. So I'm just reading that I could find, getting what I could see and trying it on. Even
Hmm.
at a period of time where I would be what you would consider like a left hand path,
Hmm.
like in the left hand path philosophy, not necessarily the magic at that time. Eventually I would also do that, but
Hmm.
in the early times I was at most a dabbler and more of an armchair
Yeah.
magician. So I would read stuff like LaVey Satanism or
Hmm.
Luciferianism and things like that and kind of get the feel. And but I would try them on. It felt like I was just trying on different clothes
Hmm.
to see what was the same about the religion. And at
Yeah.
that time, I had it in my head that there had to be some unified factor in there. If I could just get a hold of it, I'd find that thing I was looking for.
Right.
And I've since figured out that that's not exactly the right way to look at it. It's not exactly wrong,
Hmm.
but it seems to me now, having experienced things after getting into magic and whatnot, that really whoever originated these different works experienced something and then tried
Hmm.
to explain it through the works.
Hmm.
And so coming at it like, let's find what was true about the works, that's not exactly it. If you can go and experience it, then you can just find it in the works automatically. You could see it in the works then. 'Cause you're like, oh, okay, they're talking about this other thing. But if you don't experience it for yourself, it's really hard to figure out what you're looking for.
Yeah. Interesting. So, to backtrack really quick, was there
Mhm.
a specific story in the Bible that you read that you were like, okay, this is enough of this? Do you remember that, or was it just kind of in general?
I really have more trouble with the Old Testament than the New Testament.
Okay, yeah.
I just kept feeling over and over again like if this was a character in a story, he would be the villain. Like it doesn't feel
Hmm.
like a good god to me.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
goes against kind of my mom's view of Christianity. Like she was very much more like Christ consciousness-y, like let's all help each other, let's be one world, whatever. She had that side going. And I
Hmm.
wasn't finding that in the Old Testament anywhere because that's not how they rolled in those days.
Yeah, right.
And then with the actual New Testament, my issue is just like you're reading, it feels like you're reading the same story over and over again from different perspectives, but none of them align. Like they really don't tell the exact same story.
Yeah.
So it's like, why is this religion so conflicting? Why is it so,
Mm.
you know, in this version, this happened, and in that version, there was no magic, and whatever. It's just like, okay, all
Yeah.
right. But I think the biggest one was just all the war stuff in the Old Testament, where it was like, oh, we need you to go kill every man, woman, and child. And I was like, okay, I understand why someone would have to do that so that they don't rise back up and take you out later in that time period. But
Right.
also, this is not moral. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It very much went against what I was just discovering in myself at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such an interesting thought to backtrack even further back to your time in basic training to
Mm-hmm.
have the thought of the camaraderie within the enemy. Not
Yeah.
many people, I mean, I don't know, I was never in basic training or any army and military experience, but I would think for those that are joining that that's not a common thought to have
Right.
because you might not continue with that path if that were the case.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that sort of, it almost seems like that wasn't intended to be your path
No.
because you had the feet thing and that moment of clarity, that moment of truth, and not wanting to kill people, and
Yeah.
I think there is this numbness to people in those roles. There has to be, because if you're
Mm-hmm.
shooting another human, you can't really, unless you have like no heart, like you can't think about, oh, I'm killing this man that might be a
Right.
dad, who is, yeah, who's a son to somebody and a brother and a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that was sort of the beginning of this journey for you and everything. So
Yeah. You
so
even see it in movies where they
mm,
want you to dislike one group over another, and they'll be like the stormtroopers in Star Wars. They all wear the
yeah,
exact same thing. They don't look like individuals. Because
Right.
if they look like individuals, you might question, are the rebels good when they're shooting people? You know, I don't know.
Right.
Some movies don't care
Exactly.
as much, but there's a lot that you can see that kind of propaganda happening. And I
Totally.
think that happens a lot with the uniforms too. We all wear the
Mm-hmm.
same uniform so that this is
Mm-hmm.
us, and then that other group looks different. You know, it's
Yeah.
a very tribal thing. And I don't think it's like nefarious, because I think we were tribal peoples once and that was just the way things were.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels a bit outdated now to me. I
Yeah.
understand the need for it. I'm not like, no military. It's like, oh, okay, we're not there as a species yet.
Yeah. Yet.
But
But
and that means we do need some people who are willing to do that. But I think the more we move away from it, the better. And I think it
yeah.
has to happen gradually. I don't think it's something you could just yank out like some people think. But I
Yeah.
think the direction should be away from that as we move forward.
Agreed. I completely agree with that. And so you mentioned being like an armchair magician for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and kind of dabbling in all that. And I know from from what I've spoken with you about a little and watching your channel and then also talking to Fryer who connected the two of us,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more of your journey. So what was it that at what point in your occult journey did you decide to make your old YouTube channel? Did you have this information that you were like, I'm going to share this because it's a platform to share it on?
Yeah, so I was armchair for a long time, and then somewhere in my late 20s, early 30s, I decided to actually start trying this stuff. And again, there was a little bit of a barrier of like, oh, is this like, if I try to summon a demon, as they put it, am I gonna be in trouble? Like, is it gonna turn out everything else was true that I've let go? Like, there was still
Right.
that like tentacles of it holding on to you at that point,
Yeah.
but that's gone. That's way gone now.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, I got into it because I was starting to try to do my own business and things like that. And I was like, you know what? Let's see if magic works. I've read all this stuff. Let's
Mm-hmm.
try to bring things into my life. I hadn't gotten to that point of where I'm at now, where the whole point to me is all the self acceptance and spiritual understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really all I'm kind of about now, is because it just, that stuff fascinates me so much more.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, I was like, let's just try these things out. Let's stop sitting on the fence and let's put our money where our mouth is. And then I had some positive results from that.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up getting a job that was really much higher paying than I was even expecting, after doing a ritual for one and all kinds of other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to accept that, okay, I don't know why it works,
Mm-hmm.
but this works, and it works differently than I understood just reading it. Like, there's something else here. And
Mm-hmm.
then eventually, through that path and everything, I started to have other experiences that started leading me into wanting to do things for the world, or wanting to do things for the community and things like that, which has advanced since then to like, I understand that there's this greater like oneness to all of us and all this other stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand that back then. But then I was starting to watch videos online, and there were people who were cutting these things up and making them simpler and more digestible. And I thought, that's great. We're finally getting a way to learn this where we don't have to go in and read a 300-page book of occultism and pick out the grains of truth in it.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody was showing their face. And so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I could be that guy who's like, look, I look like a normal person.
Yeah.
We aren't a bunch of kooks in robes. I mean, we can be.
Right. We can be. Yeah, if we want
Sometimes it
to.
can be fun, but like,
Yeah.
we in our day job, we're normal people.
Right.
And at that time on YouTube, this wasn't as big as it is now. So now
Mm-hmm.
you can go and see people on TikTok or whatever who are witches, and they'll just look like normal people, maybe with some witch core stuff, and that's
Yeah.
normal. But it wasn't yet at that time, and people weren't showing their faces. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I could be that guy who just like is there to say, hey, we're normal. And there were a few people like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then I also noticed a lot of people weren't citing their sources, and I had the sources to back me up. And it's like, I read
Mm-hmm.
this here and that there. I've kind of gotten away from that over the years, because now I think a lot more of it is more intuitive than I thought back then. I was very much like, I read all this stuff, this is how it works. And then since then, I've been like, no, it's close. Those
Yeah.
books don't quite have it either.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, you can go look this up on this book, on this page, and whatever. And I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like that was something that wasn't out there. It was like a resource.
Yeah,
And so I
totally.
made the channel for those reasons. And I made it for one other reason, though,
Mm-hmm.
which is I was starting to work with entities at that time, and the entity I was working with was like, "You should do this." I was
Hmm.
like, "Okay."
Which
So
entity, if you don't mind sharing?
at that time, I was working with Ishtar,
Okay.
And my symbol on the channel resembles Ishtar's symbol for that reason, because at that
Okay.
time, that's who I was working with. So it's the 8-pointed star, basically, in
Yeah.
that more like starfish style, instead of like the points instead of the arrows. It's like the
Okay.
8-pointed star
Gotcha.
with a circle in the middle.
Hmm.
And I have, again, since then, like years later now, I have come to the view that when we work with gods and things, we're working with what some people call the transcendental other, where it's
Mm.
really a part of ourself, but it's kind of embodying this god nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that what I was working with then was another form of myself. But at the time, I was not there in my practice. I would not have said, I would just said that I'm working with this
Mm-hmm.
goddess.
Yeah.
And there was that urging of like, because I was basically sitting there going, man, someone should do that. And then she was like, yeah, you should do that. And
Hmm.
that's what started the whole process.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. I haven't worked with Ishtar, and it's really only been a new thought for me. Just what you mentioned, as far as the separation between the entity and ourselves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how it's actually, an intelligence within us that is expressed and connected with and felt. Maybe, we're able to visualize, we're able to feel
Mm-hmm.
it. Some people, um, able to paint this picture. We put this persona, this image out there because I feel like we need that, and
Yeah.
what you said about just the resources and the fact checking and all that. I think for those getting into it, like, that's important, because it's easy to brush somebody off if they're like, oh, well, intuitively, this is what I feel is correct, but I
Yeah.
don't have any facts to back it up. Even if they're
Mm-hmm.
100% right, it's easy for somebody to be like, like, who is this
Yeah.
person? Yeah. So, but that's really cool that that intelligence, that entity, like, told you, prompted you to make that channel.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of, I don't know if at the time maybe you felt like it was a courageous thing to do, but ultimately, like, it is, to put your face out there talking about this sort of thing. And yeah, there's so many. I'm not really on TikTok. I've tried it. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
It takes up too much space on my phone, so I just don't have it on there anymore now. But it's like common. Like, people are out there that are witches of all sorts,
Yeah.
and that's cool. Some are good, some are bad, I'm sure. Like I said, I don't watch them, but it's not so taboo like it used to be.
Yeah.
And I even, but then on YouTube, I feel like it kind of is, like, people are starting to do it more. But even,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when I started my channel, which was only, I guess, 2017, 2018, there still weren't that many, and TikTok wasn't around yet. So it was still, I feel like I was slightly ahead of the curve, but also at the same time, I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was doing. I was just doing some magic and sharing my results. It wasn't like an intentional, like, I know this stuff, like, and I'm going to share it. It was, I mean, it's kind of, it's expanded and evolved in just what, as I've learned along the way. But it's more so just about sharing experience. And I never really had any fear about putting my face on there. I mean, obviously, I don't use my, like,
Mm-hmm.
legal name.
Right.
But even now, I'm more like, I'm not going to change the YouTube channel name or anything, but I'm more like open to it if, I were to go by my name. Like, it's like, it's okay,
Yeah.
And so not to ramble on too much about that, but going back a little bit, so you mentioned too that you were anti-Christian for a while, and for
Oh yeah.
viewers, I think you mentioned this in our emails before rather than in the
Yeah.
video. So was this before you got into deeper into occultism, or along the way, or just speak on that for?
Oh, yeah, a little of both. So I think
Okay.
when I broke out of it, if we go back to when I started looking at other religions and things,
Yeah.
I really got this understanding, which I think anyone who's probably watching a video with whatever title we're going to have on this will already know, which is that Christianity is used for control.
Yeah.
And a lot of these rules and the way that they're set up are basically just there to keep you in line. And as a result, I was kind of like down with that system. I was at that point in life. And so, again, that led me to some left hand philosophies and things like that.
Hmm.
But also, even studying Buddhism or anything like that, I still was like, I like this, but I don't want to incorporate any of this Christianity. I kind of left it all behind
Mm-hmm.
And would have told people at that time, like, you should leave it too. That's where I was at.
Mm.
Now, since that time, I have reached a point where I can look at people who are Christian, but are more like maybe how my mom was, where she was trying to find herself in it and then kind
Yeah.
of found like that new agey Christ consciousness stuff. And they still are going at it. They're going after the same thing I'm going after. And I can see it now that, like, okay, you're still seeking after the same thing I'm seeking after. I think it's going to take them longer to find it through
Mm.
that process. But I think if that's what they're comfortable with, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was there before. That was maybe only in the last 5 years that I've gotten to the point where
Okay.
I'm like, okay, you can be Christian and still find this stuff, but it's a chore if
Yeah,
you're going to do that.
it is.
You
Yeah.
still got to break out of the norms if you're going to do that. It's possible, but it sounds needlessly harder.
Yes. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
But yeah, when I first got into magic, I think I was very anti-Christian at that point in time. I was definitely, the first entities I worked with were demons and all that kind of stuff. Just
Mm.
fun. I was like, let's go all the way. If I'm gonna try to call upon something and it could damn me, let's go ahead and do a demon first. Let's go
Right.
straight into it. I was at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
we're
like
gonna do it, go all the way.
exactly. Like jumping off the edge of the cliff. Like we're
Yeah.
just gonna go.
And
Yeah.
then my experience was so positive with those entities that I was like, well, now I can't believe that they're evil.
Hmm.
So I had to figure out what that meant. At the time, again, now I have my own views on it. But at the time, I was like, man, what does that even mean? Now that
Yeah.
I'm having a contact and these things are helpful, and it feels like demonized old gods, not,
Yeah.
problematic uh, beings or anything like that. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's such an agenda with the church, like,
Mm-hmm.
and with Christianity, and just all about control, all about painting, writing a narrative that they want people to follow by. And I like that you said that people can get there, they can find what they're looking for, they can get that spiritual fulfillment from there. Sure, you can, but
Mm-hmm.
it might just be a lot harder and a lot longer. Um, and like I know some very devout Christians who have found that it does work for them, whether they're pastors or not. um they're strong in that faith, and
Yeah.
they're not the kind of Christian that is gonna like Bible thump you,
Mm-hmm.
or speak down to you or anything. Like it's almost like they are enlightened people, and they've just taken that harder path. I say
Yeah.
harder, whereas like Christianity is the harder path, but it kind of is,
It is if
like
you want to go that way with it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
If you want to follow that, like, Christ viewpoint, that's we should be charitable to everyone else and give people the shirts off our back, it is a harder path if you actually do that, but most people
right,
don't.
right. Yeah, most people don't. Most people, yeah, well, most people just want to be saved and fear the fire and brimstone. And
Yep.
it's interesting too that just with the upbringing you had, and even not being fully immersed in religion as a kid, that there was still the reprogramming and everything. And like you said, I think that's just almost like, mm, I don't know if archetype is the right word, or just like an energy for people, a brand almost, an imprint that
Mm-hmm.
we're born with. If any of your family for generations or not has been Christian, like it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we fear going to hell, and we want to go to heaven, and that's how it
Mm-hmm.
goes. and um and
Yeah,
I
and
find, yeah,
and
go ahead.
on that note, now that you bring that up, because I was just thinking in response to that, like, as a Western society, it's baked
Mm-hmm.
into a lot of our things. And it reminded me exactly of what you were asking about being anti-Christian about things.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Golden Dawn, which is one of the practices that I've tried out,
Okay.
a lot of times they use god names and things like that. I mean, there's also Egyptian names and crazy stuff added in there. I say crazy stuff just because they took stuff from everywhere, but that's
Mm-hmm.
great. But they keep leaning into certain Christian tropes as well, because
Mm-hmm.
that's just what was in the zeitgeist of where they were when they built this.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of it is why I didn't end up sticking with that path, because
Mm-hmm.
I was still so anti-Christian. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not
Yeah.
calling on Yahweh for anything. We're not doing this. I'm going to call on fire, earth, air, and water. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
calling on angel names. They mean
Yeah.
the same things. I've read enough to know they mean the same things,
Yeah.
but I just couldn't do it. I was like, nope.
Hmm.
I'm
There was a
using
resistance. So,
elemental names instead because I just couldn't do it back then. Now I'm like, okay, I get it. If
yeah.
that's the names that work for you, it's still the same energies. It's still the same thing.
Yeah.
But for me, then I couldn't do it. I was like, nope,
Have
it's too Christian.
you gone back to any Christian, I mean, practices or beliefs or anything like that? No. Yeah.
No, no, I don't need it. I know people that do, again, like kind of that Christ consciousness stuff where
Yeah.
what they're talking about is what I'm talking about a lot of times. So I'll talk about saying, I might even use the word angel to
Mhm.
explain like how they say the holy guardian angel or the higher self or things like that. I
Right.
may even call it an angel, but I think of angels more like the ancient Babylonian, how like all the gods had their angel messengers and their demon messengers, and that was all the same thing. And
Mhm.
it was like their way of talking to us. It was like
Yeah.
if the god was going to talk to a person, they sent an angel. It was like a
Mhm.
messenger. And now I look at that more like, well, when you kind of channel a god or speak to a god, it's through this angelic part of yourself, which is that higher self. And so you're
Yes.
talking to yourself, but you're also not. So it's a little like,
Yeah.
so it's a little hard. Especially, I called my channel PsychoSorcerer because I was heavy into the psychological model back then, but I have way moved past that now
Interesting.
into
Okay.
that view that the more of the we're all one on at a certain level, but we're also individuals at this level.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think there are layers in between that people haven't really unlocked.
Mhm.
And one of them I might call like the angel or the higher self or something like that. It's like the greater us
Yeah.
that exists and knows more than we do, but forgets it on purpose while we're here, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So what talk a little bit about the rebranding or the debranding that you called it, and just what was that journey like, with what you originally, what your message was, what your platform was about, and then what happened to sort of just recreate it and to where you are now, and like talk about the shift like in
Yeah.
your own mentality too of everything.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question too, specifically for this talk, and I didn't even think of that until you brought it up. That it's also about leaving a religion, so to speak. So
Mhm.
I I did my shadow work while I was doing that YouTube channel,
Okay.
and slowly made my way out of being kind of fear based and into love based
Mhm.
and understanding even more. I had already, you could see it had already started way back when,
Mhm.
but that's when I really embraced the practice of doing that. And then after I kind of found that, I didn't know who I was. I kind of went through this like I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what am I? What's everything else? I had a moment that was just like I don't
Mhm.
know what's going on. And so my channel changed names at that time to what I call it, the Grand Infinity, I think I called it.
Okay.
And I was basically just doing interviews and things because I was like, I need a break. I'm going to talk to people, and
Yeah.
that's a it's not that it's easier to do interviews, but you can take a moment,
Totally. Yeah.
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 And so I was doing that for a while, and then I had this total crash of my entire like spiritual magical system. It kind of just like
Mhm.
broke for me,
Mhm.
and I went through a big dark night of the soul. I ended up deleting that channel, which
Mhm.
is why that's gone.
Mhm.
And then I just spent years not on YouTube,
Mhm.
trying to figure out who I am, what does this mean, whatever. Kind of leaned heavy into existentialism and out of the occult for a while.
Okay.
And when I came back just as Joseph March as my own channel because I had people that I had become friends with who were fans of the old channel, and that's how I had met them, that were like, can we just get some of your comedy stuff or whatever? Like, just get on here and be silly again, just have a
Yeah.
good time with it. So
Mhm.
I made it as like Joseph March, but at that time I wasn't even branding myself as in any of this anymore.
Mhm.
And then somehow over the next couple years, it all just started coming back in a new way as I started seeing these connections that I didn't have before.
Mhm.
And now I'm back to talking about this stuff again.
Mhm.
But again, it's from this very much more we're all one type of look that I didn't have. In my old spiritual practice, I was more about specific spells and using the tools and doing things the right
Yeah.
way, quote unquote, and stuff like that. And now it's all very much more, I can feel when I'm in touch with what I need to be in touch with, and I don't need
Mhm.
to do these rules or these traditions the way they're
Mm.
written.
Yeah. Yeah, and fascinating to hear about the shifts that can happen when you're already shifted out of religion. You know, the shifts into a
Mm-hmm.
cult, because like once you're like, the occult is such a broad word. Like it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that I'm just into rituals and this, like it, all it means is hidden, and there's so
Mm-hmm.
much that is encompassed in that word. And so people, I feel like, don't often think about that. You know, that there could be, you know, a disconnect from something that you were doing earlier in the occult because of a lack of resonance with it
Yeah.
anymore, or an identity crisis, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then just having to re-find your footing. You know, I
Yeah.
almost feel like I've been kind of at that point this year, not intentionally, but not that I'm having like an identity crisis, but
Mm-hmm.
there's been this like shift, this energetic shift. And I have been doing mostly interviews this year.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and it was like it is easier because it's like
Yeah.
it is, but it's not easy. You know, like I still have, there's
No, it's
still
a
a lot
lot
of
of prep.
planning. Right, exactly. And but at the same time, I enjoy like connecting with other people and hearing
Mm-hmm.
their stories and everything. And but it does take away, it's just a different level of like creativity and productivity that's involved. And so it's like kind of been
Yeah.
a nice break, while in the background I've been on this journey of sort of shift, like an energy shift. You know, like it's more, it's less so about like doing so many spells and
Mm-hmm.
reading all the books as it is to just finding like what works for me.
Yeah.
And finding and sort of evolving, not that I'm not doing magic anymore, like I still am, you know. And but it I don't know. It's difficult to explain because I don't feel like I've fully transitioned like onto the other side of wherever
Mm-hmm.
this is going yet. You know, but there's just been a shift, and it's almost like I don't feel as like attached to my YouTube channel as I
Right.
once did. Yeah. And
Yeah.
not that I'm going to delete it or anything, so anybody watching this, don't like, it's not going to be deleted as of right now or anything.
If you ever go through one of those like crisis type things as a result of it, which is just temporary, I'm
Yeah.
sure you know, but it's just a temporary transition period if that happens, and then you come out stronger. But if
Mhm.
you do, don't delete it. I really
Yeah.
wish I hadn't deleted it. I could have literally said, hey guys, I'm going through some stuff for a while, you won't see videos for a little while, and just
Mhm.
taken a break from YouTube and left it all up and then come
Yeah.
back when I was ready. And
Yeah.
it just, it's not that I care about the number of subscribers that I lost or any of that stuff. It's just
Yeah.
that like I later hearing back from people who found me again and were like, "Oh, we missed you and all this and that, and we wanted to relook up this thing that was really good, and then it was gone." And what? And I was like, I disrupted people's lives in a way I didn't know. Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think I was that important to anybody, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
other than my direct friends and family that I know in real life.
Yeah.
And it turns out that sometimes you might be putting out content that's really affecting someone in a positive way,
Yeah.
but they're in your back catalog. And you drop
Mm.
that stuff out of there and they're like, you
Yeah.
know, what, why? They take it personally, sort of. And I'm like, I wish I had just left it as like an archive.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I would change if I could do it again. So if anything
Mm.
happens where you do feel like, man, I need a year off from YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
which you have every right to do if you ever feel that way,
Yeah.
just do it. Don't delete it. Don't make any permanent changes. Just be like, all right, guys, I'm not gonna do videos for a little while. I'll be back. And then
Yeah.
come back when you're
Peace
ready. And then
out.
you'll be ready and you'll want to do it again. And it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Because I can be sort of the impulsive, I have the impulsive tendencies of just like, nope, deleting everything, getting
Mm-hmm.
offline. So, yeah, and I'm not at that point, you know, and I still do get messages on, or comments on some of my old videos from like years ago
Yep.
where people are like, thank you for this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a good reminder for me to see like, okay, like, I'm glad I put this content out there. It's helping somebody, you know,
Yeah.
and that's important. So,
And it
um,
has an impact on, even if it's only a few lives, it has an impact on a couple people. And it might just be that one thing they needed to move left instead of right once.
yeah,
And they figure it all out from there. Like, you're like, oh, okay.
yeah,
You might not be the only thing that got them there, but it's just one more thing that
exactly,
helped kind of
yeah.
plant that seed.
It is really cool too to like to connect with the people that I've connected with over the years, like subscribers and even doing interviews, that you know, it provides clarity for me on my own path sometimes,
Yeah.
because people can see what I'm going through or doing, and they're like, "Hey, have you tried this?" or "Hey, have you done this?" or whatever. And it's like Friar is a good example, because
Hmm.
I was expressing to him recently about how I felt like I needed a teacher. I felt like I needed a
Yeah.
mentor again, because I had kind of gotten to this point and I'm like, I'm just kind of doing the same stuff, but I want to keep going, but I don't know exactly where I want to go
Hmm.
and what I want to do. And he provided me like with this meditation, and just all sorts of information and stuff. And it's, you know, I'm sort of, I haven't like dove in, but I'm stepping in, you know, into it. I've been doing the meditation daily, and it's, I feel like it's exactly kind of what I needed, you know, just in
Hmm.
order to find some more centeredness, and to really, because this summer was really shifty. And sorry to make it about me for a
No, it's
second, but
perfect.
yeah,
This is
but
exactly the type of thing that I was going through. So yeah.
oh, cool. Okay, yeah, and because I like the energies of this year, like earlier this year, I just felt like I was just in such this urgent state
Yep.
to produce and to create, and I love doing that stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, it
Hmm.
wasn't like I had a terrible time doing it, but I was stressing myself out
Right.
unnecessarily to try to do things for my YouTube or for people. And it was like, and then I went on this trip in June for like a week, and it was a great time, had a wonderful time. And I came back home and I was like, how do I not get into that energy that I was in before this trip? Like, how do I not
Yeah.
feel anxious? How do I, you know, how can I, what? And it's like I almost, well, I didn't almost like quit YouTube or anything, but I just needed like a step back, because I was like, what am I doing? Like, is what I'm
Hmm.
trying to do, does it even resonate with me right
Yeah.
now? Like it, and like I was putting out these weekly tarot and oracle card videos, and I don't mind doing readings. I love doing readings. I mean, I don't read for myself often anymore, but it was like a chore. Like, I just didn't
Yeah.
enjoy doing it.
Yep.
And you know, and it maybe a couple people watched them or whatever, a few people, because sometimes they were for members only. And I stopped doing it after the last one. I was like, you know, guys, this is the last one for a while, because frankly, like, I need to find a new rhythm. I need to find what
Hmm.
works for me, and I don't want to force myself to do this if it's not bringing me any joy.
Yeah.
And and so I really kind of, and also just with like doing the interviews and stuff, I'm kind of like thinking in the background about what my new direction is, you know,
Yeah.
like what, just how that's going to go. And it's still all unfolding, you know, I'm not in any rush. But at the same time, like, I've been doing this meditation daily. And I've been really like, it's summertime, you know, so I've been trying to be outside as much as possible and just really like grounding and centering myself again.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. And just kind of figuring out the next step, because I'm like, am I just gonna keep making like these magic book reviews for the rest
Hmm.
of forever? You know, like, I don't even, I'm not doing that much magic all the time.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know like where I'm going with this. I guess just how that shift can take place when you're already in something, you know, and also just to relate to your own process and your own
Yeah.
journey, like. And so how would you like, how would you describe and compare where you are now to where you were before this sort of shift took place?
Yeah. So I have kind of played across the entire field of theories on what magic is back in the past,
Mhm.
where I had a period of time where I was like, oh, it's all in the mind, as in like in the hard meat of your brain or whatever, psychological, like that kind of psychological.
Mhm.
And then where I'm like, no, wait, spirits are definitely something else. And now I'm all spiritual. And then where I'm like, is it both? Is it neither? What's going
Mhm.
on? And I went through all that on the old channel trying to figure, like, find my way around.
Yeah.
And now I'm at this new thing where I don't even see the body as us.
Mm.
I see us as this kind of everything. But that doesn't quite explain it well. I feel like that's the thing. Everybody hears it everywhere, and you're like, that's not a new idea. We're
Mm-hmm.
all part of everything. And then we're experiencing ourselves through this life. Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. But it misses that there is still some somethingness of us that is separate and unique.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see things as like, well, that uniqueness, that unique self is the real us, and it isn't tangible here.
Mm-hmm.
And so even my thoughts that I have, those are more like a prompt, it feels like, where it's like, okay, I think about something, ideas pop up, and I can decide which one to follow. But I'm the one deciding which one to follow. I'm not the one coming up with the ideas. At least that's what it feels like now.
Right.
And that can be really scary when you first start going that way and start being like, a lot of this is programmed stuff
Yes.
that we're just doing, that our bodies just do on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And this can also be why we have a lot of trouble getting ourselves to do stuff that we don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
As in, like, my body wants to eat a big chocolate cake. I want to lose weight, but it does not care.
Yeah.
And
Right.
if you understand that that's actually accurate, then you can see why trying to force it to not eat the cake isn't working, because you're treating it like they're one and the same. You're going, oh,
Mm.
I am failing at not eating the cake. Like, no, your body is going to eat the cake no matter what you say. And that's what you're not realizing. And so you got to
Mm-hmm.
find some other way to get it to not eat the cake. You got
Mm-hmm.
to outsmart it, sort of. And that's why we have all these tricks and whatever.
Yeah.
And as you start to see it that way, it starts to make sense. But it really takes a long time to dawn on you that's like, oh, well, I'm not really my thoughts, or I'm not really this, or I'm not really that. And eventually you're like, wait, what? What's left? And it
Yeah.
pulls you into this other space. And that's where I get to that. I think we are, as the mystics say, this like thing that permeates everything. Like maybe Brahman is
Mm-hmm.
one of the words for it,
Mm-hmm.
or, I call it the eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we are that thing experiencing itself through multiple people. I think that it's more complicated than that. I do think there are levels where like there's the eternity, and then there's like gods, and then there's like these messengers, and then there's you, and it's all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still the same oneness that's experiencing every one of the steps along the way.
Right.
And you are experiencing a human life, but you really, I think, are that messenger experiencing it, is the best way to think about it. Like there's
Yeah.
you aren't really here like you think you are.
Right.
And that can be a dangerous thought if you're not ready for it, because
Yeah.
people can take that into a wrong direction and become very like separated,
Yeah.
detached from reality. And I think you even see that in mystical groups where they'll be like, oh, well, I just want to become one with the eternity again, or the all, or whatever they call it. So I'm going to separate and go to a monastery and do nothing. It's like,
Mm.
that's not the answer.
Yeah.
You need to still be here in the world doing the hard stuff that
Mm-hmm.
is difficult and feels difficult because it should. And that helps to make you a better person. But you have to remain aware that you're this other thing at the same time. And that's the difficult part. That's the challenge that right now I'm going through, is trying to not
Mm.
just remember it when I'm talking to you, when we're talking about the occult, not just remember it when I'm in meditation, but remember it when I'm doing work.
Yeah.
Like if I'm
Exactly.
hammering out code, I have to also remember that I am also this other thing, and that everyone is also that other thing.
Yeah.
And that just because I'm aware that I'm that other thing, it doesn't make me any better than someone who hasn't figured that out yet. Like we're all still the same thing. Like we're all that thing trying to learn itself, sort of. It's like,
Yes.
well, I've got a little bit of it, so I should share it.
Yeah.
And that's what becomes now the goal, is just like, okay, if there's someone where I can share a little bit of that too, I should do that. But I should do
Mm-hmm.
that because it helps me, because I'm them, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
That makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually just kind of spot on to the point that I've been at lately personally,
Yeah.
with the meditation that Friar gave me. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
separating, like the witness. You might know it or do it, I don't know, but it's the witness consciousness. Where
Yeah.
you are separating the outside world, the body, the mind, the emotions, the will. And I think he does the whole I always say it wrong. Advaita Vedanta system. Do
I
you know
can
what I'm
never
talking
say it
about?
either, so I know
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah.
I'm always afraid to say it because I know I'm gonna butcher it, but I
I
know
know.
what it is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so hopefully I wasn't too far off then.
Hmm.
But that system, and the first couple days that I did that meditation, this was at the time where I had expressed to him, this was not long ago, where I expressed to him that I felt like I needed guidance, I felt like I needed a teacher, I felt like I just needed a mentor on my spiritual path, because I was just kind of like, what's, how do I keep going? And I started doing this meditation, and just within the first, I'm still doing it, and just within the first
Hmm.
couple days, I realized the power and the danger, like you said,
Yeah.
of that sort of awakening, of that perception shift, of detaching from the mind and the body and the
Hmm.
emotions and the will and the urge, and actually feeling that separation
Yeah.
from
It's kind of
while
scary.
doing it. It is,
Hmm.
and I literally like I had done the meditation earlier in the day, and then I was like doing laundry or something, and I was just thinking in my head about it, and I was like, holy shit, like I've exited the matrix, like
Yeah.
this is what now? And I paused, like I stopped myself in my tracks, because I was like, what now? Like nothing matters,
Hmm.
and it was all a little bit existential for me,
Yeah.
and just for about a
Yep.
week, and then I kind of settled back. Were you gonna say something?
No, no, it's 100% how it feels. That's definitely it.
Yeah, yeah, and so I'm still been I gave myself a 30-day challenge to do this meditation, and also like a writing challenge, but
Hmm.
regardless,
Hey, my
and
journal is part of how I actually make sure that I remember what I figure out. It's like
mm,
I get these understandings. I understand it very, very well when I'm in that state,
mm-hmm,
as if I know more.
right.
And then I come back to this like fleshy body and only some of it stays. And if I don't write it in my journal, I
Yeah,
might as well just have to learn it again. So yeah, a
yeah.
writing challenge is not a bad thing.
It's not. No, it's been honestly such a great challenge, and I hope to do it beyond 30 days.
Hmm.
And that's it's funny, because it's like, I don't know if you've ever done like psychedelics or anything, and I mean, I'm not a heavy psychedelic user anymore, but
Hmm.
when in some of those sort of spiritual enlightening psychedelic experiences you have, it's the same sort of thing. Or even with dreams,
Right.
like you have this profound realization, and you're like, oh my god, I have to tell my friends that this is the answer or whatever,
And then it's gone.
and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was just like that. It was that same level of depth and profundity. I don't know if that's the right word,
Hmm.
but that I had without being on psychedelics this time, just doing the
Right.
meditation.
Yep.
And for a few days it really made me detached. It really made me just like, I'm gonna play video games because I
Uh-huh.
want to. I'm not gonna
Hmm.
do what and so it's kind of more recently been this reintegration back into, okay, like I still need to do things,
Yep.
I still
Yep.
have desires, I
Hmm.
still would like to write my book and do my YouTube and all the things, but it's like a shift in energy, just as far as how I'm approaching it, and still kind of integrating into that. And for a while, you kind of feel like you're floating. I felt like I was floating. Like I felt like
Hmm.
I would wake up in my avatar body, and
Hmm.
I was just
Yep.
going to the grocery store, seeing all these NPCs. I know they're not all NPCs, but I was like,
Yeah.
everybody, we're just in a video game here. Like,
Yeah,
we're
that's what it feels like.
just, it does. And it's
Hmm.
crazy. But at the same time, I'm grateful for that shift, because I feel like it was necessary. Like I was ready for that at that point in time.
Well, you'll also
And
notice that things seem more obvious that weren't before. And that happens
mm,
gradually. Like you already probably were having that happen for however many years you've been on this path. But like
mm,
when you hit this point, a lot of things will just be obvious to you. When someone says something and they're projecting, you're just like, I see it.
yeah,
When somebody has experienced this or not, you can kind of just tell.
yeah,
Like, and it's not a bad thing to them. It's just that you don't have to question them that long or anything to just notice like little things and just automatically catch it because you
yeah,
feel kind of like you're outside looking in instead of being in your feels all the time and everything else.
exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with feelings. And this is why, again, it can be very, very, very very bad for people to learn this early but not have experienced it,
Mm.
because you might think that what I'm saying is don't follow your thoughts, don't listen to your emotions instead, and that is not it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you
It's
very
not.
much need to let your emotions go through you and process them and experience them
Yes.
fully as they are without any judgment, and that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
But you start to understand that you're not those emotions, that they are a feeling.
Yes.
And so it's very different in a way that if you haven't experienced it, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
But
So
you have, and I can tell just from your explanation there, like, you know what I mean.
I do. I do. And I hope that people watching this, like, whether or not you know what it means, if you can, great. If not, I hope you're learning something from it too. But that is really important what you just said, because even just a few weeks ago, I had that exact moment where I felt like was detaching my from my emotions too much, and
Yeah.
then I felt, I got emotional about something, and I started to
Mhm.
cry a little bit, and I at first was like, I am not my emotions, I am the witness to my emotions. But then I was like, no, that doesn't mean don't feel your emotions.
Right.
Emotions
Right.
are meant to be felt. Like, the only way, so I allowed myself to feel them and to process them, because before
Hmm.
that, as I was beginning to do this meditation and have this like awareness, I was I was just kind of like, just I would just push everything away. I was like, okay, I'm not these things, so we're not going to deal with them. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I was
Which
like,
is okay to
okay.
do for a little bit, but you got to come back.
Right, yeah, because we are still here. Like, I'm still in
Uh-huh.
this body. I'm still still in the mind. But it is really beneficial too for like anxiety. I think if you're an anxious type person,
Yeah.
because I have a lot of anxiety or just anxious, very ADHD too. And even
Hmm.
if I'm able to kind of just rein that in a little bit more. So whether or not viewers have experienced what we're talking about, meditation helps with anxiety regardless.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
yeah, so that's something. Oh gosh,
Uh-oh.
sorry about that. My window's open, so that's hopefully not okay. It's gone. Um, so yeah, so I feel like we've kind of spun a little bit out there, but that's totally fine. I love
Mhm.
spinning out there. So let
I
me
guess so. You were asking me about how it's changed from my previous one, and I guess I went
yes.
into what I believe now. I didn't explain what I believed then.
Okay, yeah. So go ahead and go
Uh,
back.
so I was definitely in that stage of like doing the Golden Dawn workings,
Mm-hmm.
trying out folk magic, like basically leaning into stuff like witchcraft and everything, which is great. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that stuff, and I think they lead you to where I'm at now. So that's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, like, don't make it sound. I don't want to make it sound like I did that then and I do this now and this is good and that was bad. It's like, no, that was good
Right.
because it led to this, but
Yes.
I didn't understand where I was going back then. I was at
Mm-hmm.
that point where I was doing spells to get stuff, or I was doing spells to try to talk to something or whatever, and I didn't really know where I was going, which is again fine because you
Mm-hmm.
don't know until you get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I would say is the big difference, is that I was maybe trying to go down every potential possible avenue I could just to
Mm-hmm.
see what was there early in, because I didn't know where I was going yet. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm going to try a little of this. I'm going to try a little of that. I'm going to try a little of this, try a little of that. And when I hit that point where I was like, whoa, I need to pump the brakes for a while, and I ended up leaving YouTube, was when I was like, I've tried everything I want to try and I don't know what I am. Like, I just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
got confused and needed to start over, sort of.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is that, peeling it all away and starting again was not leaving the practice like I felt like it kind of was.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does come back, but as it comes back structured. It's like a foundation is built. Now you're like, oh, I already know which things worked and I know where I want to go. And you start to kind of build your own way to do things. And I think everybody has that happen at some point, and it's part of the path. So if it happens, take a little break, come
Yeah.
back, you'll be fine. Don't make too much out of it. I over freaked out.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but
and
I
then
think yeah, go ahead, continue.
and then now currently I'm going through again some of what you're going through right now, which
Mm.
is I have experienced this experience and I know what I want to do for the next however many years, which is
Mm-hmm.
just this practice of being like this longer each day, like having
Mm-hmm.
that, holding that that consciousness for longer periods, and
Mm-hmm.
the world kind of seems magical all on its own now instead of needing to cast for things and things like that. It's very cool,
Mm-hmm.
but I have nothing to talk about on my channel because how many times can I explain what we just talked about? We covered it here more or less.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
here's it. And then anything else that was magicy and occulty that I did, I already have covered on that channel.
Yeah.
So I've run into that problem where I'm like, I don't know what to put up here.
Yeah. Hmm.
So just like how you're saying, oh, sometimes now I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. I'm like, I'm also trying to figure out like what do I put on my channel anymore?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure give me a year and I'll have tons to say about this whole
Something.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
I
that
don't know right now where it's going. So
Yeah, and that's interesting to hear that it even happens further along with the
yep,
same sort of thing.
it's
So,
gonna keep happening.
yeah, just doesn't stop. Yeah.
You're going to go
Um,
through periods where you're like, man, that was awesome. And I need to tell everybody, and you're going to have tons of content. And then you're going to have, as a result of doing all that, it's like you're getting to process it again.
yeah.
And then you're going to like catch on to the next thing and start going into it. And as you're going into it, you're like, man, this is exciting. But then you're in the period where you got to do the work. And
Hmm.
there isn't anything new to talk about when you're doing the work. You just have to do the work. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you could find something. I think you're doing a very good thing by like, okay, well, I'll do the work and I will do interviews for now. And then once the next inspiration comes, I'm on it.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And I need to
Thank
figure
you.
out what my thing is before my inspiration hits again and start doing that on my channel because I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You will. You will. It'll come.
Mhm.
So, do you still, or how long has it been since you've done any sort of magical practices? Or do you still?
So I don't do them the same way, but I have done some. I
Hmm.
now will only do something that I would consider a magical practice if it's something that I want badly enough that I'm willing to change myself.
Okay.
Because I think that the real way all this stuff works is that we change ourselves, and the rest of the kind of cosmos, whatever you want to call it, kind of aligns to that change.
Hmm.
So you can't make a change without it affecting you, is what I'm
Right.
trying to say. Like
Yeah.
I can't just be like, hey, I want higher income and have it come to me. I need to become someone who can make that higher income.
Yes,
And so if I
exactly.
want to cast a spell, I have to be willing to change who I am also. So it makes me do it far less often than I used to when I
Hmm.
used to cast all the time and then be like, how come 1 out of 5 of these work and the others don't?
Hmm.
It's like eventually now I figured out this kind of like hidden key, which is you got to be willing to change. And it isn't necessarily you got to put in the work. I think a lot of people would say like, oh, you got to change yourself as part of it. And it's like kind of, but it's more like you have to be open when those changes come to letting
Hmm.
yourself change. And if you're not actually ready to change, then the magic is not going to work.
Right. Yeah,
So I only
exactly.
I only cast for something now if I actually want it bad enough to change the way my life is, and my life is pretty good, so
Hmm.
I don't cast a lot
Okay.
because it have to
Okay.
be something I really, really want to have happen. Like it has to be important,
Yeah.
or I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. That makes
And I don't think
sense.
we can make huge changes. I don't
Hmm.
believe in that. I think it has to be a change that affects you.
Right. Yeah, that's relative pretty much
Right.
to just yeah, to what's your orbit, what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. And I agree. I think that's important for people that do practice magic to understand is it's like, I know people are kind of better at grasping hopefully about like when you do magic, like yes, you need to put in the footwork too.
Mm-hmm.
But what about if you don't know what footwork to put in, or we
Right.
think that we know the footwork to put in, but that's not actually the footwork to put in. And exactly as you put it, it really means like being open to the experiences that will help to change you because if we think we know what we're going
Yeah.
to do or know what to do, we might just be changing ourselves for what we don't actually want or for something that's not truly aligned, or we're running the show rather than just kind of letting everything flow and unfold naturally.
Mhm.
And but it's kind of a fine distinction,
Yeah.
because and you don't really learn that unless you've practiced it and trial and error and see what works and what doesn't work. And not to say that it's wrong to like move forward with actions that you think might be right, because maybe they will, but really it's about remaining open to other things too, like you said. And and so let's see, so not currently, would you do you feel like the same sort of Okay, so talk a little bit more about your the shift just for viewers between the intelligences or entities being outside of us and within us.
I think if you're at a stage where it works to talk to them outside of you, then do that.
Hmm.
Like that, first of all, I just have to say that because for
Okay.
years and years and years, that's how I've done it. And
Yeah.
it's fine and it works and you will learn stuff and you will grow and you will get there. So it's
Yes.
great.
Right.
So if you're someone who is talking to spirits or gods or whatever and it is working, just keep doing that. Don't
Hmm.
change it.
Hmm.
Don't hear what I'm saying and be like, I got to change my whole thing. Like, you're good. You're fine. It will
Yeah.
change on its own if you need it to and when you are ready for it to change.
Yeah.
For me, it changed eventually, but only recently. This is maybe the past year or so
Mm.
that I've reached this point where I'm like, okay, it's me, but it's this other me. It's I had to understand this sort of like I keep calling it a messenger because I don't know what to call it.
Hmm.
And I only use that language because I hate calling it an angel, but you know, God has this messenger that it sends to you type of thing. Like that wording is why I
Yeah.
call it that, but it feels more like nodes. Like if because
Mm.
I see everything sort of like a fractal pattern that's growing out of itself.
Okay.
So like we are a copy of the eternity, but the eternity also includes us, and like you know, the whole thing is what you look like also, and all that kind of like inside of itself
Hmm.
stuff that's really hard to describe.
Yeah.
um but if you think about it that way, then you still have layers. You have like the core biggest thing, which would be the eternity, and then you have this like next branch of it that would be, you know, godlike beings, and then under that another thing, and under and under and under. You
Mm.
get small before you get to where we're at. But
Hmm.
I think that we should be trying to awaken the part of us that is kind of one step up, which is what I keep calling a messenger or whatever. Like that's where
Hmm.
I'm at. It's like if I can awaken to that step, that's what I'm supposed to do as a human. And I don't
Hmm.
need to worry about awakening the whole way back to the source.
Hmm.
I'll do that as the next step when I try to awaken to the next step. It kind of feels like it's a pattern that's going to go on and on and on.
Yeah.
And when I started seeing things this way and seeing like myself as not the body,
Hmm.
but as this other thing kind of experiencing the body, that's when my communications with spirits changed.
Hmm.
And I started noticing that it felt more like looking at a reflection and talking to a reflection that just looked
Mm.
different, that was
Hmm.
taking on sort of like a character. Like if you were going to decide to be, you watch a movie and you're like, I want to act like that person. And then you
Hmm.
take on some of their characteristics. The gods felt more like that all of a sudden to me. Like they
Interesting.
are me taking on characteristics, but not this me, not this body's me. Like that's why it's
Right.
very hard to say because people in the psychological model will be like, oh, it's just you, like the brain you taking on what you think are these characteristics. No,
Hmm.
it's this higher you that is everything that you understand about the eternity as a being,
Hmm.
kind of showing you less of itself when it becomes a god because it's taking on the parts of itself that are like that god instead of the fullness, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes.
And so like it can sound like I'm diminishing the gods and saying like they're just us talking to ourselves. It's like it's not the us that's an ego and other stuff. It's this higher us that is the eternity and everything.
Hmm.
So the God can both exist and be part of you at the same time if you understand that wider view of the universe instead of the us just being these meaty bodies.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
very hard for me to get there as a person. I'm 45 now and I'm only here for
Hmm.
like a year now. So like it took me a lot of years to get from I'm going to cast a circle and call demons around me to this. But it happened without me knowing that I was going that way. And that's why I think it can happen for anyone on the path without them even
Yeah.
necessarily intending. You will just find it when you're ready.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this is not to like discredit anyone no matter where you are on your path. Like these
Mm-hmm.
interviews are strictly just like your story personally and how it's evolved for you, and I hope people can relate, or if not, they're at least learning something new. And it is interesting to see like how that path does evolve, as I've said, a
Mm-hmm.
bunch, because sometimes you just don't know. And then an outside force might shift something, or
Yep.
inside force, and then it's like, okay, wait a second, we need to kind of do some recalibration here, as far as what we're doing. And I've kind of noticed that a little bit myself with the spirits, because that's sort of been a newer concept to me too, is it's an intelligence more so within me. And just with some
Hmm.
like meditative work that I've done, more specifically with Lilith. And I don't work with Lilith
Hmm.
often, um, but the times that I have meditated with her before, it was like, okay, I could really strongly feel this, her energy, like outside, and it was very separate, and that was kind of before I had this experience. And now it's like an invocation almost, except not,
Yeah.
because it's already there. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just waking up this wild feminine side of me that's
Hmm.
within me, and not just because I'm female, but because we all have this inside of
Right.
us.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
something that's carried within all of us. And so it feels there's more of a, it deepens the connection in a way, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need this external thing to help me, because it's not external to me. But that being said, I can still call on Lilith or
Yep.
whoever if I want to, because it's still activating that energy within me.
Yep.
And the magic will still work, and all the things will still happen, hopefully. And but it's less of a separation of like, here's me and here's entity, but more
Yep.
of a togetherness, like you said.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's
that's it.
just, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
so it's just really, it's I don't, I mean, I haven't like looked at a lot of people to see who's talking about all this and stuff. I bet Fryer might know, you might know more, but I feel like the witches on TikTok don't necessarily talk about this kind of stuff, which some do. I don't know. I'm speaking out
Some
of
do, some
ignorance.
don't.
Yeah, yeah. So
And some people might experience this, but they don't talk about it also.
true, true.
Because if I'm
Because
talking to someone who just talks about them as spirits and doesn't go into this, I will just meet them where they're at because it's
right,
the same thing.
it
Like,
is.
it doesn't feel like I have this better connection. It's just I have a different understanding of the connection now,
Yes.
which is good for me. It makes me feel like, oh, I get this now in a way I didn't get before, but
Yeah.
it doesn't give me any greater access to that knowledge or anything like that.
Right.
It does make me more, it does feel like I can change quicker. Like I can
Mm.
accept transformation quicker
Mhm.
than I used
Mm.
to. Like this makes it so when I realize, oh, I need to change, I realize it instead of just having, an entity telling me I need to change. It's like, no, I feel it in my bones too. It's all happening at once. Like,
Yeah.
so the process seems to happen faster now. There
Mhm.
seems to be less difficult to do things. But otherwise, it's the same. It's
Yeah.
just a different way to experience it. And when I've talked to them as spirits after having this experience, they've said, oh, we can always show up to you this way if you prefer.
Hmm.
That's always been allowed. Like
Mhm.
we can still have this interaction, just like how
Right.
you can imagine a conversation with someone
Yeah.
and we'll fill it in, you know,
Yeah.
but we don't have to do it that way anymore. You can or not, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool that the like understanding and the communication between the spirits like shifts a little bit, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, we know this, like
Hmm.
we're waiting for you to like realize
Yeah.
it and figure it out and stuff. And I think it's important just to kind of reiterate that, like, no matter where you are on your spiritual path is not wrong. Like, it's not
Right.
bad. Like this, it's all an evolution, and that's like all that these interviews are really about, is just the
Hmm.
evolution of that spiritual path. And I wouldn't be at the point I'm at now, and same to you, like you said, if you hadn't have done all that preliminary work, you
Yeah.
know
Yep.
whether or not you see it as preliminary work, whether you know or not, like, I don't know, I'm just doing things because they are interesting and I want to do them, and I don't know
Yeah.
where
You're
it's
on the
going to
journey.
go. Yeah, you're on the journey, and everybody's journey is different, and no matter where you are on the journey is great, and there's no hierarchy in the journey either. Like,
Right.
there's no, like, oh, I have this deeper understanding and this amazing perspective shift and stuff, and like, I'm better. No, it's not. It's like, okay, it's just a deepened awareness. It's just,
Hmm.
our eyes are maybe more open than they were, but that's not squashing or diminishing anybody else's part of or journey of where they are, because they've, yeah, like we've all been there before, or some of us have been there before if you're on this journey. And so okay, so I'll get to like kind of back to a couple more questions. Does your family, do they know about like your spirituality now, your practices, how it's
Yeah,
evolved? What's their understanding?
they know, but my family is a little different. So my wife is agnostic, which is
Mm-hmm.
not the same as atheist. It's more like, meh, if we don't know, why should we even touch
Yeah.
that? That type of thing.
Right.
She's fine with me the way I am, so that makes things great. Because if
Great.
it was like a religious thing, it could be an issue, but I don't have that problem.
That's
So
good. Yeah.
we're all good. But she doesn't practice this stuff, but I do. But we're all fine
Mm,
with that.
mm.
And if I start talking about this stuff, then she's gonna be like bored real fast because this is not her jam. But
Yeah.
that's it. That's the only real danger there is that
Boredom.
like this is not
Yeah.
really the person that I go to talk about this stuff,
Yeah.
which is fine. It's good that you have your own things you're into.
Yeah, definitely.
My son, I don't think that I want to necessarily teach him all the stuff that I went through,
Mm,
but I will talk openly about it. So he knows about my channel and what I've done and that sort of thing. He knows what I believe. But
mm,
I've been trying to raise him as the opposite of how I was kind of raised, which is here's some of what I believe, here's some of what other people believe, because I've done these studies before.
mm,
Here's this religion, that religion, this religion. Eventually, as you grow up, you will figure out what you believe, type of thing.
mm,
I
mm.
very much want to instill in him it's a decision you get to make.
Yeah.
So don't do what I do just because I'm your dad. Don't follow your mom just because she's your mom. Try
Yeah.
to understand different people's cultures and then think about them critically. And so that's what I try to do. I don't know how good it is. Sometimes I'm bad at it when it comes to Christianity because he has Christian friends that'll say a thing and afterward I'm like, well, that story says this, but this story, like I can't help myself sometimes
Yeah.
in that particular sphere just because I have a lot of knowledge there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, the goal is just like, hey, I want you to do your own thing. And if he asks me, hey, can I try this or that, then yes. But if he doesn't, I am leaving him where he's at. Like, you learn your thing. We don't need to
Yeah.
bring this into your life until you're ready for it.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's a beautiful answer. And that's one of the questions I do like to ask, what you just answered, is like with children, and if you had a children, which or child, which you do,
Mm-hmm.
like how you would go about raising them, and whether spiritual or religious. Because I think about that too, and I don't have any children of my own right now, but if I do, when that time comes, like I would not want to put them into the same upbringing that I had, like religiously or
Mm-hmm.
spiritually. I don't ever want to assign a certain faith to them and be like, this is it. Because frankly, I just wouldn't be able to do that anymore.
Right.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
that's not, I want them, I think, but there are some things that I would like to do. Like I'm very much of a spiritualist, and would
Mm-hmm.
like to, make offerings, like, or honor ancestors,
Yep.
and on Halloween, and not even just on Halloween, and just be more mindful of like nature and nature spirits and stuff like that, and things that are here, and then of course provide them with information. And I also like what you said about the different cultures. Like ideally I would love to be able to take my kid to travel with me when
Yep.
the time comes, and get them to see firsthand like different cultures and different
Mm-hmm.
religions and different practices, because that's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm almost like at the point where I'm like, if I can't take my kid to do those things, I don't want a kid. Like I would,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to just sit around, take him to baseball games or whatever, and give him a no. So but I'm a long way off from any kids. So but I think it's important, how these next generations are being raised, because
Mm-hmm.
so many of us were like brought up in these controlling religions. And with the few interviews that I've done, like it is fascinating to hear how people have like gotten out of that, or and found their own path. And some people do like find their own path, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people
Yeah.
stay there. And some of my best friends, like that I
Mm-hmm.
love to death, like they just don't, they don't have that seeker within them. Like it's dormant. Like they're not
Yep.
curious about it. they still, I will sometimes still get a text when one of my friend was like, Pixie, I've been seeing 666 like everywhere I go. Like, is this the devil? And I'm like, no, like it's okay. Like, and so it's just, and not to say that they're wrong on their own path. They know I do like woo woo stuff,
Hmm.
and yeah, but um, and maybe their path isn't one of a seeker too, which is
Yeah.
totally fine. Like, not everybody has that journey. And so I feel like I already know kind of the answer to this question, but just for viewers and everything. So in this rapidly evolving world, like, do you think that religion having that same control and structure as it does on humans is beneficial, or how do you see that evolving and shifting in the next, like, honestly, couple of centuries? If you're able to imagine, like, what would you like to see, or what do you think is more realistic, or both?
That's a tough question
Yeah.
because I tend to be a person who sees it in more negative than positive,
Hmm.
but only because of my own experience. So I have to try to think outside of just this life
Hmm.
and to what other people have experienced in there because I know people who have grown up that way and are fine.
Hmm.
And so I have to think of it that way before I say like, oh yeah, tear it all down, like or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that would be the best thing for society is just us tear it away from it. Like especially for whatever generation has it just torn out from under them. Like that would be chaos. That's still a little too much.
Right.
I think it has to be a slow transition if that type of thing happens. I would like to see more people make that transition on their own, but I don't. But if you're asking me what I think will happen in the future, I'm not sure that I see that happening.
Hmm.
Although there are more people willing to come out and just say, like, I'm a witch, or I'm a practicing occultist, or
Yeah.
I'm into this spirituality or this thing, or that I tried all these things now and openly speak about it than ever before.
Hmm.
So maybe it is. Maybe it is going that way. I just don't know. And
Yeah.
then I am also the part of me that likes to read old sci-fi that thinks like, well, who knows that one day the religion won't be a bunch of people worshiping a machine god because it's just in the DNA to worship something.
Yeah, it is. There is like an actual worship gene that I think
Yeah.
is, yeah, yeah. So, and people are looking for that sky daddy to tell them what to
Yeah.
do, essentially. So,
I think how bad things are in the world at any given time can affect how religious people are. And as a
mhm.
result, to guess where religion is in the future, it would also coincide with guessing whether we have a more shining and bright future, which would encourage more people to be thinking for themselves, or if we have a darker, more difficult future, which would encourage people to hunker down and just try to survive because those one branch is more into religion and the other branch is more into philosophy and things like that.
Yeah,
But I honestly feel like we're at that precipice point where I can't say which way we're going to go in the future.
yeah, yeah. That's fair. I mean, it is hard to really try to see, like, realistically where it might go. Like, yes, I'm kind of in the same notion of just tear it all to the burn it all down.
Mm-hmm. It's tempting.
It is. It is tempting, yeah. But reality would probably, like, humankind would freak out, like, if
Yeah.
that happened, and it might collapse, like, I don't know what would happen. But
We don't
I,
want everyone to go through their dark night of the soul at the same time. That's a
right.
bad idea.
Yeah, that would not be good. Yeah, chaos would ensue. Yeah, but ideally, like, I think that there is a shift happening, or not ideally, realistically, there is a shift happening, like you said, of just more people being witches, more people like sharing their spiritual paths, more
Mm-hmm.
people just questioning things, and that's a good thing. And I don't think, in the timelines that we are really can really truly comprehend, if it's is it really possible to see the direction it'll take, like, not really, because the church and religion in general just still does have such a firm
Mm-hmm.
grasp,
Yep.
and they've been at this for years, and they do a good job at it, and
I
and
think
so
another thing where maybe we're all failing is
Mm-hmm.
that church for some people has a really good sense of community.
Yes.
Where if you have like this one
Mm.
church that you and all your friends go to and whatever, that's where you have your potluck. That's where you have like everybody who gets together. And even though I didn't grow up that way, I can see it when I look
Mm.
at people who are like, oh, I love the church, but you can see what they really love is that togetherness. And that togetherness is
Yes.
great and a good thing. But a lot of what we follow doesn't have that. Some people have a coven, some people have spiritual get togethers and stuff. I'm a solo practitioner. I don't have any of that. So I can see how for someone who has that, letting that go could be very difficult.
Yeah, completely. And that's a lot of that's I in most of the interviews I've done, like one of the best things that when I asked, which I didn't ask in this interview, but that's okay. Just what the best and worst things about religion was, and it's usually the community.
Yep.
And for myself included, like my favorite thing about going to church was seeing my friends on Sunday. Like it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like, oh yay, I get to go worship Jesus. No, it
Right.
was like I'm gonna go see these cool people. Um, and it is more isolating, like on an occult path.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm kind of a more introverted person too, like on my
Yeah.
own, and I don't like go out. Like my YouTube is really where I connect with other people about this thing. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
part of any covens, like outside. I mean, I have a few friends that live in other states and stuff that I might consider a coven. But I don't, I'm not like going to hang out with my witch
Yeah.
group on Wednesdays. Like,
Yep.
no,
Same
I'm
here.
talking to you in an interview right now, and then I'll talk to somebody else who,
Yeah.
and so in that sense, like the internet, it'll be curious to see how the internet and technology like helps with
Mm-hmm.
this sort of evolution, because we
Yep.
are able to connect with more people across the world and in different places and learn from them in that way. And so yeah, so it's just curious, like I don't necessarily know the answers, and in our lifetime, like religion will still be here very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
um but
For sure.
in a few hundred years, like it might have shifted, or maybe even 1,000 years. I don't know, it's hard to even imagine
Mm-hmm.
humanity existing for another 1,000 years,
It'll be
but
different at some point.
it will be.
I just don't know when or how.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it always changes a little bit, and sometimes drastically at some point. So,
One thing you see in history, though, is that there's always people that are kind of pushing the boundaries that we're pushing on right now.
hmm.
They sometimes it doesn't go well for them. Like if you're the Cathars or something, you get killed by the church. You're like, it was rougher in the past than it is now. But I mean,
Hmm.
these things, part of I think why calling them the occult is so good is like they're hidden, but they're there. And I feel like no matter how religious it could get or has been, there's always some people that seek and find it.
Yes.
And there always will be. So
Hmm.
I can't say if it'll be a larger percentage or a smaller percentage, but I do think there'll always be people who are
Yeah.
seeking and finding this up.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And so, one final question, perhaps for the evening. So, do you find now that are you spiritually fulfilled in your practices that you do?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, cool. And how long is it the same sort of glimpse of God that you got back, or the not God or higher power that you got back in church like years
It's
ago?
it's related for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I was seeing back then is the same thing that I would call the eternity now.
Mm,
Um, but I didn't have even words for it yet.
yeah.
And it came from that feeling of us all having something that I've kind of come to understand. Because, all right, back up a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Some people will hear that we're all the eternity and think like that means we're all just one person. And it's like, no, we're still unique and we're still very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about the beauty of all being one, but also being unique that I think I was starting to see way back then, but had no idea what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I think I still see every day. But now it's just so much more obvious and more bright, more fulfilling than it was back then.
Mm, good. Yeah. And
Mhm.
do you have, okay, I said one more question, but now I have another one. Do you have any like regular routines or practices that you do, like meditation or just presence or breath work or something that you practice
it's
daily?
it's always changing. I
Mm,
used to be like, this is what I do now. This is what I do now. But now it's like, okay, so it's been so many years, and every year it's a different practice now because
mm,
that's just how I am. I just find what works and I change it and I change it again and whatever.
mm,
So if you were asking me this last year, I would have told you I was heavy into journey work where you might
mm,
meditate, but then you let your mind go into this sort of dream state while
mm,
awake, and then you get to get visions and all kinds of stuff like that. And I have done that for years, and that is the bulk of what I used to do. But now I don't even feel like I really need to do that much. It almost just seems like being present in the moment, going out for a walk in nature, things like that seem to just pull me into that state
yeah.
that I used to have to meditate to get into.
Mm,
So I don't have like a ritualistic style practice anymore.
yeah.
It almost just seems to happen on its own now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you can do that starting out. So,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I would hesitate to tell people, like, oh, you don't need to do any of that stuff. It's like, no, no, you
Mm,
do. But I
yeah.
feel like I've reached a point now where I don't need any of that. It just kind of happens on its own. And I just have to remain aware instead.
Mm,
There's this constant struggle with sort of like forgetting again for a little bit and
yeah.
then bringing yourself back into that awareness.
Yes.
That's the everyday thing that I'm doing right now, is that like, oh, I just got way too stressed about something and got really here for a minute, and I need to
Yeah.
like come back out of that.
Yeah.
And that feels like a practice that's going to take a long time. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't
Yeah.
have more really to explain it because it's a feeling whenever you
Mm,
switch. It's, you can feel the difference whenever you feel like completely outside of yourself in that way.
mm,
And I know how to just kind of induce that now because I've done it so much.
yeah.
But I couldn't tell someone else how to do that without a practice. If I was telling someone else, I would say meditation because that's how I first started feeling it years
Mm,
ago.
mm-hmm.
And it's still great. If I feel like I'm having a day where I'm specifically having trouble getting into that state, then I will meditate again. And that is the
Mm-hmm.
practice I will use.
Yeah.
But I don't meditate every day anymore, which I used to do constantly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now I
That's
really like a nature walk. I really feel like a nature walk can be just as good as a meditation.
They 100%. I nature is my therapy. Like in the
Mm-hmm.
winter, I mean, I still go outside in the winter, but it's like a little different. So I've just been like the summertime, I'm outside as much, and the ocean too. Like I live by the
Yeah.
ocean, and the ocean is so healing. Like I just float in it sometimes, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's
and
perfect.
yeah, it is, and it hasn't always been, because sometimes in the past I'd go out and my mind would still be racing in
Oh yeah.
nature. Yeah, but it just takes time. It takes like other work and stuff, and just figuring it out
Mm-hmm.
and being more intentional and aware, like you said. So cool. Well, is there anything else that you want to say to viewers, or anything you feel called to share, or anything about you that we kind of didn't get to today?
I guess just don't be too hard on yourself because
Mm.
that's maybe the message of what I have learned over all those years. If we're thinking specifically about high school me versus like 45-year-old me, is that learning to accept yourself is a large part of this path.
Yeah.
And if you can stop being in your own way, then you're going to get a lot further a lot faster. You don't have to wait till you're 45 to get here like I
Yeah,
did.
and even if you do get there at 45, like there's nothing wrong with that.
it's
Like you get
it's
there when
still
you get
good.
there.
I'm
Yeah,
still happy, but I
yeah,
really do feel like that's the biggest advice, is just like, don't, because we project so much of what we don't like about ourselves onto others, and that's what makes us angry and all this other stuff.
yeah,
And shadow work can just clear that up if you go through it. But
yeah.
you don't even necessarily have to start that path. You just have to accept
Mm,
yourself. And
mm.
that's hard. And I don't just mean in a sexual way, because we talked about that too, but
Right, right,
not
yeah,
just your sexuality, but like just anything about yourself. There you, if you're
yeah,
beating yourself up about something, stop doing that.
yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
like you, I think you were bringing up, we still do it even in this practice, because you were like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this emotion right now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm beyond this emotion or whatever. It's like, don't beat yourself up about what you're feeling.
Right.
That's going to take you right back to the same problems you had when you're beating yourself up about Christian stuff. Like it's the same problem again. And it will
Yeah.
come up again and again and again. And no matter how far on this path you go, it's going to still come up.
Yeah.
And you're going to catch yourself doing something, being like, oh, I still didn't fully understand the thing I'm doing now. But that never stops. There's not like some point where you're like, now I've fully got it, and I never have that happen. And
Yeah.
when that happens, it just starts to feel more like an opportunity to better understand something now, as opposed to like, oh man, I'm messing up. It's like, no, you're not. You're catching something, and
Yeah.
you're growing.
Yeah. Totally. I think that's great. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
like there's I heard a long time ago, like, love yourself. No, don't shame yourself into change, love yourself into evolution.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
yeah, yeah. And I still find myself doing that, like whether
Yeah.
it's body image stuff or shaming myself for thinking a mind thing,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm grateful I have the awareness to come out of it faster and
Yeah,
shift it
that's exactly it.
faster.
Yep.
Yeah, but it still happens. I'm still human. I'm
Yeah.
always going to be human as long as I'm in this body. So, yeah. So, but I think that's really important because we don't realize how much we stand in our own way for a
Yeah.
while until we realize it. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, cool. Well, and I would love to have you. It seems like you might have like an interesting shadow work journey too.
Yeah.
And if I would love to like talk to you again about that sometime on a different like interview if you were open to it. I
Sure.
kind of yeah, I'd love to like pick your brain on and just talk more about like shadow work too because I think that's something that is worth being talked about for
Mm-hmm.
people like yeah in this day and age. So cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time and for your
Yeah.
sharing your journey and everything. I think this was a really great interview and I hope that everyone watching, if you made it this far, also enjoyed it. And if you were familiar with PsychoSorcerer or PsychoSorcerer 2.0, or your brief interlude there of the other channel name, was it Golden
Grand Infinity.
Grand Infinity? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and I think a lot of important things were said just about like the path and what each path
Mhm.
looks like. So cool. So thank you for your time. And
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
of course, yeah, you're welcome. So I'll go ahead and end here. So again, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to PsychoSorcerer 2.0 as well, and like this video if you heard anything interesting or inspired, or just give it a thumbs up anyway. So thank you guys, and thank you, Joe. And until next time.